Hello, hello. We should be going live now. Just gonna get everything set up and good to go for the chat. And let me double check. One last thing here, quick, as I get started. I know this is not the best way to start out a stream, but making sure everything is good to go. Almost there. So close. There we go. Sweet. Alrighty. We're working. We're gonna start by working on a drink here. Normally I have my drinks pre-made, but this is a little bit of a last second stream. The reason why it's been a little bit of a last second stream, or why there's going to be, or was some delays this week on stuff. So, trying to remember. Monday night, I had to put the toddler to sleep, which just meant it was a later night. I had the podcast to record as well on Malts and Meat, or on 10 Minute Marvel. And then on Wednesday, I ended up having a migraine, which is always a good time. But I didn't want to go a whole week without a stream. It's easy enough to fill in a stream here. So, of course, it minimized for me. So thank you to anybody who can make this last second stream. This is very, very last second. But I now have more of a reason to be going through and culling all of my games. Well, not all of my games, but culling games from my collection. Kind of doing the whole, we're going through the collection thing. Because there's a cidery near where I live, about a 10-minute drive, that somebody on Board Game Geek, one of the local Minnesota people, sets up a kind of sale event every 6 months, every year. I think it's every year in the spring. Last year I think it was maybe in the fall, just because of COVID. Or maybe they do it every 6 months. But anyways, there's one coming up on May 14th. And so I was like, well, I'm going through my collection already. Let's figure out what I can do, what I can sell. So it's, I think, $25 a table. You have to bring your own table. You have 8 feet by 10 feet. So good size space to put it in. You might get stuck in between a couple of businesses. You might get stuck in between a couple people who are just selling games from their collection. But I'm looking over at what I have. I already have 4 things, 5 things, 6 things that I can sell. 8. And some of them are going to potentially pay for the spot just by itself. So, continuing through, well, now I kind of have a deadline of May 14th to get the whole way through my collection. So let's start at the bottom here. And we're going to start with one that I am going to be getting rid of. This war of mine, I think this might have been the first one that was kind of done by Awaken Realms. And this is a one based off of a video game that I haven't played, but it's supposed to be a pretty good solo game. Interesting on the rules, I've heard. And I haven't actually played my copy, but I'm going to be getting rid of this before I've played it, simply because I don't know when I'm going to play this. This is one that I can get back if I really want to. I also heard it's a darker game, which I got nothing against potentially a darker game, but when I have other solo adventure games out there, and other survival games out there, this is not one that I'm going to get to and play anytime soon. Next up, we have one that is definitely going to be staying because I haven't played it yet. And that's going to be Forgotten Waters by Plaid Hat Games. So this is a pirate-themed game. There is a website that you use, a free web app. It's a URL, so that's a website. And I don't know, maybe there is an app that it links to off of that, but this is kind of that Crossroads style game, like a Dead of Winter or something like that. And Forgotten Waters is going to be pirate themed. Story is done via voice acting. Cooperative, so not semi-co-op. And this is one I'm really excited to play, but I haven't gotten around to. I picked it up at the very beginning of the pandemic. It's actually one that I think all you needed was both people to have a copy of the game, or to have, maybe not even both people needed the copy of the game. You just needed the character sheet and one person to have a camera on the game, and you could play it pretty easily via Zoom or something like that. I never got around to that during the pandemic. So this is going to go back on the shelf to get played. I'm excited to play this one. I think it's going to be a fun story. Thinking about it, I maybe should have suggested this one. Though, right now, playing through Role Player Adventures, and no regrets on that campaign, that's for sure. Next up is one that I am debating on. So, let me pull out both of the boxes for this. This is going to be another one from Plaid Hat. Dead of Winter, as well as the Longest Night expansion. I enjoy Dead of Winter. It's a fun game. I really like the Crossroads events in it. I really like that it's a zombie game where you're not just fighting waves of zombies. You're trying to survive, and that feels cool and different. However, why this one is kind of a debate for me is that this is not a fast game. Let's see what it says on the back here. 60 to 120 minutes. I think 120 minutes is probably the shortest you can play it in. It's about a 2-hour game, maybe an hour and a half. Longer if you're playing one of the longer scenarios. And that's what keeps it from hitting the table regularly. I really enjoyed it when I've played it. There's a ton of cool things in this game. I love the story that you get in this game as you play it, as you're going exploring, finding more survivors, things like that. More mouse to feed, really. But I don't know when I'm going to play this again. This is one where I look at it and I wouldn't mind playing it again, but it's a long game. It's going to be the game night to play this game, and that requires a small enough number of players to play it. People have to want to play it. I have to want to play it, relearn the rules, make sure I know everything correctly still, and then set it all up. And I would have to go through and divide all of this back up in between the two boxes to sell, or I could sell it as a group. All of it. But I just don't know when I'm going to play this again. And I mean, it's very much a classic kind of game at this point. This is one that I would think a lot of people might even say got them further into the hobby because, well, it's one of them that was on tabletop. It was one of them on Will Wheaton's show, and I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh yeah, I remember this from tabletop. I picked this up because I saw it on tabletop and it looked like a lot of fun. It is. It has a hidden trader, semi-cooperative nature to it, which does make it a little bit trickier because, well, I can be greedy and not put in food for a round because I need that so I win the game, and that could cost us the game. And that is another thing that I don't love about this game. I think that it is a fun, really fun time, but honestly, the more I talk to myself on this, I'm talking myself out of it. I don't think I'm going to play it again anytime soon. And I mean, if I do, I may just want to get the base game back and not have the expansion stuff as well, because I've never played with the Roxxon stuff. It looks cool, but it adds complication to the game. I haven't played with, I mean, I don't have the Warring Colonies, at least. There's the Bandits or something like that. I haven't played with that. So I just don't know when I would actually get back to playing it. So that one's going over there. So a cube that had 4 good-sized boxes is down to 1. Next up, we have Pioneer Days from TMG. Tasty Minstrel Games. And this one I want to keep because, well, 1, it's new. 2, or new for me. 2, this is going to kind of be my chance to get it. I bought this when TMG was going out of business with them liquidating or selling their stock off on Cool Stuff Inc. And this one it looks interesting to me because it's kind of an Oregon Trail type thing. And I like that theme. And I know this is going to be more of a Euro game, but I think it's going to be a fun one. And I'm going to grab another one here that for sure is not leaving. The Dresden Files Cooperative card game. And this has all the expansions that are out thus far. There should theoretically, or could theoretically, be another one coming soon, because Jim Butcher has written 2 more books, and generally the expansions are 2 books and 2 playable characters. There's a ton of playable characters in this. There's a ton of content in this. I need to get back to it and actually finish all the stories. This is not a campaign game, but if you know the Dresden File books, then you kind of play through it wanting to do that. This is a pretty mechanical game in what you're doing, where you're getting tokens, or you're spending tokens to play cards, or you can discard cards to get back tokens, and it's kind of cycling through that so that you can try and solve more cases than there are villains left on the board. So if you can solve more of the green cases, there are the red ones on the board, you win. But there are obstacles, and those obstacles make the game harder, so you have to deal with those as well. And there are advantages you can get there. Those are nice things that can help you out. This game has the Dresden theme, and it has a fair amount of the Dresden theme. However, to make it really thematic, you have to know the books. Fortunately, I do. Fortunately, I have a really good friend who does as well. He also has the full collection of all this Dresden File stuff. I could get rid of it for that reason, because I'd have a copy to play, but I'm not going to get rid of this. Like, Dresden Files, favorite book series, easily. Like, Jim Butcher's writing, it's up there. Him and Brandon Sanderson are the two that I love. So there's no way I'm getting rid of this. This one is just near and dear to my heart, so that most definitely is staying. Now for one that's a little bit more of a question, because I haven't actually played it yet. That is going to be Shadows of Killforth. This is one that I got on Kickstarter because of watching Rolling Solo on YouTube and the coverage that he did on the Gloom of Killforth. This is going to be a fantasy kind of questing game where you are going around to different places, recruiting people, getting items, things like that, until eventually you find the big bad guy and face off against them. The first one was very kind of standard fantasy. This one is a little bit more Eastern inspired, which, I mean, I really like the artwork in this game. The question for me is, am I going to play this game, Shadows of Killforth, from All or Nothing? Pretty sure that's the name of the company. Yeah, All or Nothing Productions out of the UK. What's making this one a fairly tough decision is the fact that this is a Kickstarter game. This is not something that is regularly in print. There was a third version of the Killforth stuff, I forget what it was, that happened not that long ago. And I wasn't that tempted to get it. But this one still tempts me a lot to play. So I think I'm going to be keeping this one just because I like the idea of it. And I mean, 45 minutes per player is what it says on the box. So hour and 15 for a solo playthrough. That's not that bad. If I can get it down to that, that's something that is streamable and something I could show off, which would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I am still debating on this one. Dark World of Gothic High Fantasy. Yeah, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to be keeping this one. It interests me enough. Next up, we have a playmat. But more so than that, we have everything in this one box for Apocrypha, the adventure card game. This is the game that the Pathfinder adventure card game was based on. Now, it's confusing because if you look up the date for this on BGG, you look up the date for Pathfinder adventure card game on BGG, this came out second. But this was in the works. This was a system that they were already doing and a story they were already building when they then got to deal with Paizo to do a Pathfinder version of this. And I actually have the second edition of the Pathfinder adventure card game that I just ordered today because I've been looking at it for a while. I've actually been kind of wanting to get the first edition because there's so much stuff for it. And it's a fun adventure game. There is an app for it that is very good. But I have Apocrypha with its horrible, horrible rulebook that I really want to play. This one is not leaving the collection. If you saw the article that I did today, it was ranking my horror board games. And this one's pretty high on there. I've only played it a little bit, and I want to play it more. Oh, and I gave the wrong description for this card right here. It is called Extra Razor Blades, and it is just a picture, a drawing of a basket full of apples. And that is my type of dark humor. Or my type of dark weirdness. So this one is definitely staying. In fact, this whole set of cube right here is going to be staying. Next up we have Deranged from Hobby World and Ultra Pro. This is again another horror themed game that I just want to get more time with at this point. I don't think this will ever leave my collection. This is a game that I have great memories with because we got to demo it at Gen Con, and that was an amazing demo. And I had a good time playing when I've played it here in person. I've only played it, or since then, I've only done it once, but I want to come back to it. I want to play other scenarios because, well, the game is just a lot of fun. In this game, you are in a town, you are cursed, and you have to get rid of your curses. However, at the end of the daytime, 2 people in a 6-player game are going to become deranged and basically turn into monsters. What is cool about this game is you have cards that you're using to kind of decide what you do. And I think as a player, you can do 2 of the actions, or you can do 1 action on a card, then you can take a fatigue basically to do a second one. Or when you're deranged, you flip your hands of cards around, and now on the top of those cards is going to be the actions you take, which are basically move, attack, and defend. So really good game. And when you're deranged, you can kill another human, kill another player. That just sends them to the graveyard. They come back, they get another curse for that, and now you're back to being a human again. However, any curses that you had, you have to deal with still. It's a lot of fun. Not really semi-cooperative. I don't know, it gives me some of the same feel of something like Dead of Winter. I don't know why. Probably to the horror-esque theme on it. But it just gives me that feel. Next up, most certainly not leaving, though needs to get a card added to it, is the giant box of Role-Player Adventures. I'll put that right on top. I have some promo stuff here. Ooh, I have the backstory stuff here. So this is not just Role-Player Adventures. This is Role-Player Adventures. This is Role-Player adventures, monsters, and minions. And this is role-player adventures, fiends, and familiars, all in a single box. And there are so many dice. Gotta re-zip that one. Do not want that many cards falling out. And honestly, the only thing that slightly tempts me to get rid of this is that I have it all. I have it all, which includes a couple promo boards, a couple promo cards, the 2 expansions, and the base game, and it's all in a single box. I need to go through and create some sort of way. I know that there are organizers out for this giant box, by the way, which that's probably what I need to do, is maybe Folded Spaces has one, where I need to get an organizer for this so that I can organize it in a way that I can pull out whatever expansion might be. They had an organizer in here. I put it in air quotes because it was basically the Fantasy Flight, well, what I like to call the Valley of the Shadow of Death, which is basically just means that like at the edge of this box there would have been, and it's cardboard, trough. It was a horrible insert. It's nice because it fits everything. But the downside is it fits everything without being all that organized. Let's move this over here. Move up a level. And this is another one that is going to stick around. Well, one, because it's very new for me, but also because it's an IP that I really like. This is Acquisitions Incorporated. Basically just characters for either the Legacy game, you can use them in those, or in regular Clank. So it's just some guys that I like to add to my Clank game. And I have that over here, which we'll get to, I think, tonight. I think I want to get down through this first Calyx. And this one's a lot of fun. But it's going to stick around. Definitely not something that I need. Definitely something I want to get into a box that is not that separate box. Let's look and see everything that's in here. Little rule thing, and then some minis and some cards. I do not know that I'll be able to get this into the main box, but that would be ideal. So yeah, the set of 10 starting cards per player. I definitely want to start playing more Clank. I actually have an expansion coming for Clank, which I probably shouldn't have ordered, but I did, because it's been a little bit since I bought a board game. That's part of the same order that has the Pathfinder adventure card game coming in it, as well as Radlands and expansion for Res Arcana. Let's see, there's and another expansion for Railroad Inc. Because I think after I get that one, I will be one short. Which reminds me, right now, Horrible Guild for April Fool's Day. I was about to say St. Patrick's Day. That's not right. April Fool's Day has a deal going on with, I think, a code for 15% off your order. So I maybe should see if they have that last expansion available, figure out what that is, see if I can get that ordered, because I'm a completionist. That's another game that I need to play more of. So let me backtrack on that slightly. That's a game I play a lot on the app. That's a game I need to play more of solo, in person, because I just really like that game. It's such a fun route building game. Such good roll and write. Like, Might be my favorite roll and write. Probably is. Next up, definitely not leaving, My City from Cosmos. They're coming out with the sequel to this, My Island, which is going to be another tile laying game, just with hexes and on an island. This is a legacy game about building a city. I'm, let's see, 6 chapters into the I am 4 chapters into the 8, so I'm about halfway through this game. Really liking it. It's simple. It does not have that much story, but it's a lot of fun. So, let's pull all of these down. One fell swoop. Pandemic Legacy Season 2. So, I barely started a little bit on this game over on Malts and Meeples. Have not gone back to it. I just played through the introductory scenario. Fortunately, I think with that I wrote some names and stickered some 2 things. So this one's interesting because it really isn't played at this point. There's no stickers on the board, anything like that. It's only 2 characters. Oh, no, there's a little bit in that I named the starting bases. But that's about it. So nothing that's actually gameplay related have I done. However, this is one that I want to keep in the collection because it is one I can see coming back to stream. I had a great time playing it the first time I did it. And I had a great time playing Pandemic Legacy Season 1 on stream. This is not the version I played on stream, or the copy I played on stream. I think this is the color box I played on stream. But this is one that my wife and I started and played 2 months and then stopped. We need to get back to it, though it's been 2.5 years since we played it. But it's one that we could pick up pretty easily. And it is one, like, this is something I could sell for $10 because it's not fully played. You could finish it off, but mainly it has components if you want those components for something. And finally, last Pandemic Legacy, this one's still new and shrink. It's Pandemic Legacy Season 0. And I mean, I think the argument could be made that I should sell all of these as a bundle. I can be like, all right, there's a month played in Pandemic Legacy. There might be a way you can reset it. I don't know that you necessarily want to, but Season 1 has been played slightly. Here's Season 2, and then Season 3, or 0, which there was an April Fool's joke on LA Times for Season 3 of Pandemic today. I did not fall for that one, but I heard about it, and I could just sell all of these because it's not going to be that hard to get this one back. So I could free up a huge chunk of shelf space by selling a bundle with 1 month started on Pandemic Legacy. And I mean, it's more likely that somebody would have already played Pandemic Legacy Season 1, which I keep on referring to as Pandemic Legacy, and maybe haven't played 2 and 0. But part of me still wants to keep this one because I had really good times playing with some friends through Seasons 1 and 2. Now, it's highly unlikely that that same group we're going to get together and play again. But part of me is still like, I want to keep this. I want to play through this. And I really do want to play through Pandemic Legacy Season 0. but it's not as pressing, say, as knowing that I have that group specifically for this. Maybe I should check with a friend to see. This one, it might be on the chopping block, even though I've heard great things about it. Just because, well, one, I can get it back, and eventually it's going to be a little bit cheaper to get back than what I paid for it, and two, I just don't know when I'm going to play it. Same with Pandemic Legacy Season 2. I could probably sell that one, even though technically I've done a tiny bit on it, because it hasn't gone into the story. It hasn't stickered anything from the story itself. That's an interesting conundrum here, because I do want to play this, but I can get it back. And this is something that I talked about at the start of the year. The idea of buying games with more of a just-in-time mentality. It's not something that works for Kickstarter. For Kickstarter, that is out, because you can't just-in-time Kickstarters. You have to back them when they're there, and then you get them when they show up. Versus, say, a published board game or in distribution board game. Now that's a whole lot easier to be like, okay, I can get this back. This is interesting. This is like Dead of Winter was a little bit of a conundrum to figure out. And I do feel comfortable getting rid of that one. This one is different because it has more memories tied to it, tied to the franchise of Pandemic Legacy. So I think for that reason, I'm going to leave it on the shelf for now. This might be one that I revisit, though. So you go up a level here. You just saw me play this one, and I adored it. Sleeping Gods by Raving Games. This is the game from Raving Games that I've been waiting for. There's a second Sleeping Gods game coming out in not that long, where instead of having a boat, you have an airplane, and I'm going to be backing that one. I did not back this one on Kickstarter. I regret it. I still have one expansion that I want to get for it, and that's even with already having played through it once. There is so much more that I can play through, that I want to play through. Let's just make a small final old-fashioned here. Then next up on there we have Terraforming Mars and Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. So Ares Expedition actually has a Kickstarter going on right now that I want to back. And I think I'm going to end up backing it because it's 3 expansions for Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. If you watch stuff that the Dice Tower does, they talked about it recently. And there's a couple things that have been keeping me from backing it thus far. The first thing being, it's just a cost. There's a cost element to it that to do just-in-time stuff, I maybe should wait on that. The other thing is I'm only so interested in all 3 of the expansions. but I'm probably going to end up getting all of them. So there's a cooperative one, which, meh, I'm only so interested in that one. From how Board Game Co. talked about it, it sounds intriguing. Basically, you have terraformed Mars, and then things start to fall apart. And that sounds cool. And you're trying to rebuild back up as it's getting torn down. But also, it's a cooperative version. I'm not sure that I'm going to play with that. Then I completely forget what one of them does. I might add another track for terraforming, I believe. But the one that I'm most interested in adds a few things. So it adds in some achievements or missions. So a few things to maybe focus on instead of purely building up your engine. I don't know how they work completely. But the big thing that one adds, well, a few things. One, it just adds more cards. More corporations, more cards to draw from. And I want more. Like, I would be happy. Actually, that's the thing. I'm happy only getting that expansion. I don't need the other two. And when it comes to retail, those are going to be sold separately. The point of getting it through the Kickstarter would be if I really wanted all three of them, then that comes with a big box. But since I'm not that interested in all three of them, I'm really only interested in the one that adds in more cards and adds in upgraded or specialized cards you can use for your actions. I'm assuming ways to get those as well, probably as you complete missions, stuff like that. You select from it. So eventually your research, your development, your production, those things, when you play them, you get a special benefit that is different from everybody else's special benefit if they play it. And I mean, that sounds fun. That is going to make the game way more playable. I was going to say, really, it's going to give it longer legs in the fact that I won't get tired of it because there's so much out there and so much you can do. Then we have Terraforming Mars as well. So I actually decided to keep this one. Well, I knew I was going to keep this one, but I decided not to back the Kickstarter right now. And we have Terraforming Mars. This actually has several expansions in it. And this is also not one that is going away because I just need to play it. This is one I've heard so many good things about. I was exceedingly hesitant to ever play it because it looks tan and boring. And the artwork is suspect at best because this over here is good artwork. This back here, oh, shitty artwork. It's so bad. This looks so ugly. Like these cards. This game is not that old. These cards I would expect to find in a game from like the early 90s. That is how ugly those cards are. But I've heard so many good things about this game that I at least have to give it a try before I get rid of it. I was doing pretty well. And I have freed up a whole cube here, which ain't too bad. Let's go up to the top. I'm going to pull down three things here. None of these, sorry, spoilers, are leaving the collection. Start here. Madara. Kickstarter Promo Pack 1. This is a campaign game with anime, manga-esque art that I need to play. From Succubus Publishing. And this is just kind of more minis, more things like that. I have all of Act 1. They haven't opened the Pledge Manager back up again yet to order Act 2 and 3. And so when it came on Kickstarter for the second time, I only ordered Act 1. Just being responsible. And then I added the Kickstarter 1 promo pack. I added the playmats for the characters, even though that makes it so much more of a table hog. Maybe I should just sell those playmats. But the artwork on them is so good. Yeah, this one is not going anywhere. Up we go. Next up, another one that is not going anywhere until I play it, Dwellings of Eldervale. So this is a massive, massive game that is quite heavy, which is why I only took down the small Kickstarter promo box for Madara. This is kind of a worker placement game. 30 minutes a player, it says. Not bad in terms of play length, unless you have a lot of players. It's a worker placement game where you're placing out your workers to get resources, get things, to unlock more workers, and to dwell. But when you dwell, that worker stays on the board where you dwell it, and they get basically a roof put on their head, so that now they're your dwelling. And the other thing that really interests me about this one is that when you pull back your workers, and this isn't something that is necessarily unique to this game, but something that is fun about this game, when you pull back your workers, you take actions with them. You place them on your board to get stuff, to activate things. So you can fight monsters in this. I mean, you better be able to with a giant monster like that on the box cover. And you can, and my monsters roar. But yeah, I'm just really interested in this one, and they're solo. So if nothing else, I can get it to the table with that. Again, this one just looks epic, but also it's kind of it's not a Euro game per se, but it's close. It's a hybrid for sure. Next up, we have probably one of the biggest hits in the past couple of years from CGE, Lost Ruins of Arnak. And I have done a great job of not ordering the Leaders expansion yet. Why? I haven't played this one yet. I need to. I want to. This is a worker placement deck building game. I love deck building. Worker placement, mixed. Depends on the game. Depends on how interesting this one is. I have to get it to the table. I have to see how it plays. How you can optimize everything in this game to do interesting things. I love the sense of adventure that just the cover gives you, that Indiana Jones type feel. And I hope that continues in the game. But I'll have to see. So, we're going to continue at the top here. Pull down two things, well, three things. Because I'm not going to bore you with this first bit, but we have Cartographers and Cartographers Heroes with the big box. I haven't put this in the big box yet. I'm going to leave this out on the table, not because I'm getting rid of it. Most certainly not. I love Cartographers. Cartographers, Railroad Inc., now Paper Dungeons, Sonora, and Super Skill Pinball 4Cade. Those five are easily my top 5 roll and write games. So yeah, there is no way I'm getting rid of this one. Plus, that has a whole bunch of extra maps that I need to play around with. So this most definitely is staying. And it needs to get put in the roll and write section. Also, most definitely staying. This is not the game. This is the expansion. It's also quite heavy. Though I do not have the expansion materials in here right now. This is what I am playing through. 4-player campaign of this. Role-player adventures. So if Deranged was one of my best experiences at Gen Con in 2019, playtesting scenario or adventure 2 of role-player adventures was easily the best experience. That was, I think, on very first day at Gen Con, we did that. There were 4 of us playtesting it. We just had a grand old time. It's a line that I like to say, but I was slightly evil in that game. I'm playing the exact same character this time, the Chosen One. It's not that I'm slightly evil. It's that I deserve it. Or something like that. I'm not sure what she's telling herself, but something along those lines. Clank. Set that for management over there. Because we have over here Clank and Space Expansion, Clank and Space, Clank, and Clank Acquisitions Incorporated. Plus, down here, Clank Adventuring Party. Now up to 6 players. That seems like too many for Clank. Yeah, no, Clank is not going anywhere. Clank is easily one of my most favorite deck building games out there. And I desperately need to play that legacy game. Like, if there is a legacy game that I want to play right now more than any other legacy game, it is Clank Legacy. I'm playing My City because it's one that I was fairly confident my wife would enjoy. And she is, even though she maybe isn't doing the best out of all of us. She is not doing the best out of all of us. She's still having fun with it. So I knew I could get that one to the table with some friends and her. Clank Legacy. I don't know who I'm going to play that one with. I mean, I have a friend who will most definitely be up for playing that. I just want to play it, maybe a 3-player game, 4-player game. Just have a blast with it. Plus, I just love Acquisitions Inc. so much. The work that the Penny Arcade guys do is so good. Alright. But now down a level here. Descent Journeys in the Dark. This is one that, yeah, it's not going anywhere. I pre-ordered this one. This is a campaign game. This is Act 1. The box is slightly breaking. It was when it shipped to me. I'm really excited to play this one. I got to demo it at the pop-up Gen Con at the Game Center here in Roseville, Minnesota area. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the game for what it did. And we're going to make it so the face is looking out here. If I want to hide something behind it, I can. But, I mean, it fits in a Calyx cube cubby so perfectly that, sorry to games that were on top of it, I freed up some space. Plus, the whole next section here. Alright, I guess this is kind of the cubby is dedicated to a single game. So we have all Clank here. I now have all of Descent here. Down here, I'm just going to start to pull off a number of different things. There's so much in shrink on this shelf. It's kind of funny. I don't even know which one that goes to anymore. So everything that I have stacked in front of me, which is 2 kind of envelopes, 2 small boxes, medium-sized box, and basically 4 big boxes, is all for Detective, a modern crime board game. Or using the detective system, because this one is Cold War. This one is Dune, which I've heard mixed reviews on. Not Dune, but the game. This one is Detective Season 1. I have played through all of this. I have played this one. Everything else I have not played. They have a Batman version coming out, which I'm not even that big a fan of Batman, and I want to play it because this is such a good game system. Like, this is a game system that you can do any deduction type game in. Yes, you do need a computer, but the computer, it's not like an app assisted game where the app is telling you what to do or stuff like that. You're interacting with the technology for thematic reasons. So in Detective, you're logging into the Antares database system, and you can put in queries and stuff like that, and we'll send stuff back to you. In Dig Deeper, which is set in the 70s, that computer access is now much more of a phone system or kind of the filing cabinets of the evidence locker. This one, you have pets. I believe it's from the people, or at least some of the people who did Apocrypha as well. I mean, this is just more cases. This is, and one-off cases. This is the 80s version of the big box, which is kind of a campaign. I believe this one's a campaign. And this one, yeah, these are not going anywhere. This is a game system that I just adore. And one that is sliding all the way to the back, hiding everything I have for it. Because, well, you saw when I was taking these off the shelf, they're not all, they weren't all on the same shelf. There were a couple things up above Descent, and I can actually gain back a little room if I want to tilt Descent back on its side, which I might. Put those in there. Now, down to one box. Won't fit, but I'm going to front face it. We're getting down to it now. Getting down to it for this stream, for this Calyx shelf. Again, another themed set of games in this cubby. And I'm only going to pull off one from here. I have 2. I have Betrayal at House on the Hill 2nd edition. And I have Betrayal Legacy. I want to play Betrayal Legacy. Looks fun. I love Betrayal at House on the Hill. This has the Widow's Walk expansion in it as well. I have this guy full of tokens for it. And maybe I don't remember Elder Sign tokens in this. Or are those footprints? I wonder what those are from. But I love this system. There's a 3rd edition coming out. I am really interested to see what that is going to be. I hope that they fix a few of the things. Now, I do not have any more Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. Betrayal at Baldur's Gate was a fantastic game. It's just not as good as Betrayal at House on the Hill, even though in some ways it's better. Because there are more scenarios where there is no traitor. So it's just everybody working together against the game at the end when everything changes, when the haunt happens. But the theme of kind of a Dungeons and Dragons thing is not as interesting. I like my horror films, and this one gives me that. Yeah, it's not as good. Alright, now the one that is going to stay. This is Galaxy Trucker. This is just the base game of Galaxy Trucker. I do not have any expansions. This is not the newest edition of Galaxy Trucker. I'm not getting rid of this one for the newer edition of Galaxy Trucker, even though I've heard it makes some of the game faster. You don't have to play, and here you play 3 builds of your janky spaceship, cargo ship, and then whoever has the most points at the end of that wins. You can play like 1 flight if you want for the 2nd edition, but I like this edition plenty fine. I don't need a newer one. I love the real-time aspect, which is not an aspect of a game that I generally like in this one because it's only part of the game. Though the rest of the game is pretty random, but I don't know, it's a different sort of real-time aspect than, say, something like Magic Maze or Fuse, which I don't really like. I'll play those games, but I don't like them that well. It's not as enjoyable as it could or should be. Magic Maze is interesting until somebody misses that they have to move a piece. And then you're putting the giant pound in front of them and like tapping, like, pay attention to this other thing. They're like, oh, this one I have to move. It's like, well, yes, you have to move that one, but also this one, also this one. It's frenetic. It's fine, but not one that I would play. It's stressful and not in a fun way. Fuse is the same way. You're basically trying to get dice of certain values or certain combinations to make it work. And that's not that exciting to me. And I don't know, it's just one of those things where it's frenetic for the sake of being frenetic, because if it wasn't, the game wouldn't be that interesting. Like, it's not necessarily a good game on that system. Whereas Galaxy Trucker, I'm going as fast as I can, not because I lose the game if the timer runs out. The timer runs out, or everybody else has built, and now we're counting down while I'm finishing up my ship. That happens, we go off flying, and by sheer random luck, I might just be fine. And that works for me. And I mean, that's another reason, or that's a reason why I backed another game that isn't here yet, but I think is getting closer-ish, in Tiny Turbo Cars from Horrible Guild. Is that one, you have basically a sliding puzzle. There's another game, small box game with a sliding puzzle over there that we'll get to eventually. You have a sliding puzzle, you slide stuff around, And that determines how your card goes. You activate the 2 middle rows. So, yes, timed element, faster you go. If you're the first person to say done, you're good to go. Second person, all right. Third person, in a 4-player game. Okay, now fourth person, you're counting down. And because you're the fourth person, well, one, you have more time, so theoretically you could set it up better. But you lose a battery, so you're losing something, there's a negative benefit, and you're the last one to go. So if somebody gets ahead of you, blocks your path, something like that, messes up your plan. So there's incentives to go faster. There's also incentives to be a little bit slower. It doesn't hurt as much as potentially some other games, because it's a race game. You're going down to the end. That was a side tangent anyways, as I come down to the last 2 games this time. This is only one of them. 7th Continent, from the second printing, with the replacement cards. So this one's interesting. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to do with this one. I'm actually curious. In here, haven't even opened up the cards. Haven't punched the stuff out. Part of me really wants to keep this one to play it. I have heard good things. It seems like an enjoyable, interesting game as you try and break the curse on you. But I'm not going to keep it. I mean, how I set that up, no massive shock there. I have 7th Continent coming. Not 7th Continent, 7th Citadel. This is 7th Continent. So 7th Continent, you're exploring to figure out how to break a curse. 7th Citadel, you're playing through almost more story type pieces to it. Whereas this is, you're exploring the 7th Continent to see what happens. There, you have your citadels, you're kind of building up your tribe of people. You're going out on different explorations, and it's fair, and it's more specific. This one, what scares me about diving into it is the first curse. And actually, it's the first curse you do no matter what your first curse is. Well, let me explain. So, the first curse, forget precisely what it's called, but the first curse has you going all over the continent to find things. And there's a reason that they do that. And there's a reason they recommend that be your first curse, because it's going to teach you the lay of the land. It's going to teach you how the game works. But you might be playing for 30 hours before you nail everything down to figure out the back and forth across the island to figure out that first curse. And then it might be 3-4 hours for each additional curse after that, because you know already from playing the game before where things are on the 7th Continent. And I don't want that massive investment in that first curse. But I'm still so intrigued by that first curse. But before I talk myself into keeping it, it's going over here. And the next one, final one, it's a solo game, mainly. One of the top rated solo games out there. It's not only a solo game, it's a 1 to 4 player game, but most people say it's one of the best solo games out there. That's going to be Mage Knight. This one's leaving too. Why? Stick it over there. Stick it over there so I'm not tempted. Why is it leaving? Well, one, it's hard to learn. And that's not really an excuse for it. There are plenty of games with a lot of rules that I have in my collection still. I mean, directly behind me, right here, we have Folklore of the Affliction. That has a lot of rules. That has 3 boxes to it. I'm keeping that one. Well, 3 boxes with the expansions I have. I could have ordered more. I refrained. Good for me. But Mage Knight, that one, the rule book is hard. And not only is the rule book hard, you play it, and if you wait too long between playing it, you have to learn it all again. There's enough rules that's going to make it tricky. So, for example, coming up here soon, I'm going to start streaming, I think, Perdition's Mouth. And this is one that I was sent to cover, sent to do a review on and play. I want to play it on stream. Pretty sure that's going to be my plan for it. Do some reviews, do some coverage that way. And I'm going to be playing that multiple times in a row. And I'm hoping that the rule book is decent. But I have contact to talk to about the rules with that game. I don't have one for Mage Knight. Now, Mage Knight probably has better fan put together stuff than Perdition's Mouth, but I'm not going to play Mage Knight. And if I do play Mage Knight, I can get it back. That is one that I see traded regularly. I mean, regularly probably twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. And some of the times it's the Ultimate Edition, which has all the expansions in one box. So Mage Knight has been on my shelf for a long time. And if somebody watching this in the Twin Cities area loves Mage Knight, let me know. If you're up for teaching Mage Knight or playing it at a 2-player count at the Source or at the Game Center or some other game store, leave a comment, because I do want to play Mage Knight. I want to ideally play it before that May 14th date. Maybe that is a cutoff. Maybe that's going to be something where I look at it and go, okay, I now have a date that I'm going to play this by, but I also just don't think I'm going to do it. And same with 7th Continent. I want to play 7th Continent, but I just don't foresee myself pulling it out. It's not going to be the game that I sit down and play, because I know that, okay, it might be 4 or 5 hours to get through my first play where I die. But now I know where not to go, or what isn't for my curse, and repeat the process. That sounds cool. And I'd love to have the time for it. I'd love to have the setup for it. But there are just too many other games out there. So, I mean, let's go through what I'm getting rid of right now. So on this time, we have Mage Knight, we have Dead of Winter with the Long Night expansion. We have this War of Mine and 7th Continent. So only, technically, 4 games. But 2 boxes for Dead of Winter, 2 boxes for 7th Continent, a large box for this War of Mine, and I mean, Mage Knight isn't a small box, but it's not a big box. Huge box, either. Same size as, takes up the same amount of space as this War of Mine. So, really, I'm freeing up a cube and a half. Some of that because I got more detective stuff in the detective cube, which, by the way, where you have two, maybe. We have almost 2 full cubes free. Because I can't actually... Can't actually fit Clank the Adventuring Party behind there. But still, 1 cube. Down here, another cube. And I'm looking at what I'm coming up on here. And so... I guess let's kind of do the wrap up and talk about when I'm going to be streaming next. So next stream is going to be on Wednesday. There's not going to be a Monday stream. We are getting 2 kittens that day, 18-week-old, 19-week-old kittens at that point in time. And I mean, there's a 100% chance that I'm going to be in the room with the kittens just kind of chilling so that they get used to me. And yeah, so no stream that day. Eventually, don't worry, the kittens will show up on stream, but they're going to have to get used to the place, kind of introduce them slowly to the whole house. Wednesday, I will be back streaming, and because I have the deadline now of May 14th, I'm going to not be playing a game. Well, maybe I'll have it set up so I can play a game and find a roll and write. Maybe I'll play the next chapter of Paper Dungeons. But then I'm going to be spending time, half hour, 45 minutes, going through at least another 5 cubbies and the things on top to see what might be leaving or what might not, because now we're getting towards the stuff that you can't see. And some of them are interesting, some are definitely not leaving. And I probably should have some unboxings too coming up here fairly soon. It sounds like early to mid-April. Well, we're already in... Okay, mid to late April, I think, is what they're saying for Marvel United X-Men. So I'm going to do an unboxing of that when it comes in. I should be getting Super Fantasy Brawl 2, Wave 2 stuff. Not Wave 2, but second Kickstarter stuff coming in soon. And I need to figure out how to put that all in the single box, because there's so much room in that box that there's no reason not to. I might need to get card sleeves. That might be the way that I do it. So I might do an unboxing on that and kind of talk about that game. But all of those things are going to be coming up. So next stream, like I was saying, Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for, being willing to check out these videos either live, after the fact. I know that I don't put out a ton compared to some content creators, and I do want to put out more, but right now, this is what I can do for videos, and it doesn't help when I have a week where I have a migraine. So thank you so much for watching, and bottoms up.